Welcome to this edition of UCC News on Video. My name is Charles Jefferson. I'm with UCC News here in Cleveland, and I'm joined by Rachael Ward, who is the Minister for Gender and Sexuality Justice. And they join me to talk about a new exciting series that we have, Into the Deep Woman to Woman, which is a series that's connected to our General Synod theme this year. And it's described as sort of this intimate workshop and learning community space for women as we journey or as women journey together to General Synod. So Rachael joins me to discuss that and really talk about what that means and why you should participate in that. So, Rachael, I'll just turn it over to you. Tell us a little bit about this series and how it came to be and sort of the inspiration or the intention behind it.
Yeah, Charles, thanks so much for having me. And it's a pleasure to be able to share more about this series. And we really are describing it as an intimate space because we're doing something new together. It's not going to be your typical webinar. So it's actually going to be a live Zoom where we're all in the space together. We're able to have conversation, ask questions, be in dialogue, and be in shared community with one another. So for starters, you should be a part of it because let's go do something new together on the way to Synod and let's form community together on the way to Synod would be my first thing to say. My second thing to say is I think it's really important that I share that women is being spelled with an X here. So you'll see Into the Deep Women to Women series. And the reason for that is because we're using that spelling to be inclusive and embrace the wide spectrum and experiences of womanhood, meaning non-binary people, trans people, and those who embody the feminine energy. So if that speaks to you and you're a part of that community, this space is for you. This communal space is for you. And this series will be over the span of the next 3 months. So you'll have April, May, and June. And then we'll have an opportunity at Synod in our community networking space where we'll all come together and you're invited to meet each other in person if you're going to be with us at Synod and have a continuation of community and have listening sessions together to kind of share what we learned on this adventure, what needs we have across the wider church for women, not just in ministry, but women who are showing up in the variety of ways that we do in our faith together to be able to serve you more efficiently, better, well, however vocabulary word you'd like to use, but honestly, just to be communal with each other. This is the moment where we're reminded that we need each other. And we know within our denomination that we're about 53% comprised of women. And so the need for this is that we want to be able to create ways of connectivity. So we're really modeling to a degree the communities of practice that are upheld through Reverend Tara Barbara from our MESA team, who is joining me along this series to help curate it as well. So we're taking some of that model and putting it into this intimate virtual space. So we'll have guest speakers each month who are going to come and teach and share wisdom with us. And then we'll do breakout rooms where we'll have an intimate time to talk with some of those guest speakers to kind of break down things we heard, things we wanted to share, and to just get to know each other as we're journeying into the deep, full pun intended with our Synod theme towards Synod itself. So it's an exciting moment to try to see how we can create this community of women across the UCC in this way. And I'm looking forward to being with our guest and being with all of you who show up and come with us on the journey.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much for that, Rachael. A follow-up question that I have, in just thinking about um, this particular moment, that we're in the United States in particular, all the things that we're seeing, from a federal level, all the way down to a local level, there's a lot that's at stake. Senate this year is being held in a very red state. And I do know that there has been conversation, and I know that there has been very much intentionality on your part in terms of addressing that and creating a safe space, for people at General Synod. My question is, what, like for those who may have some hesitation still about actually coming to Synod. They may want to be there, but because of, again, everything that is
Yeah.
happening in the country right now, they do not feel safe to be in that space. Will this series, talk about that? Will this, be addressed? What sorts of things can we tell people about how we're going to ensure their safety at General Synod?
Yeah, so this is a good question. Um, and I think for those who know me, that I do believe that um, we can never promise safety. Safety is never promised, no matter what space we're in, whether we were in a red state, whether we were in, a blue state. The the world is the world and humans are humans, right? But what we can do with our intentionality is to create brave space. I do believe in brave space. So I will say that that's just a language frame for me. And, I lift it up because that's like my honest, lens and perspective. So in terms of creating brave space, um, this like journey that we're taking is to really attempt to take the wide tapestry of women across the UCC and give them an opportunity to be in community no matter where you are, and to know that you're not alone. For example, here's a, a, a parallel story to this example, but um, in rural areas, there might be queer clergy or queer folks who feel like they're isolated because they're in rural spaces. But when you join virtual communities and when you engage in spaces like that, you start to see that you are not alone, you're not isolated, and that when you're gathering together, you have this wider tapestry of believers, of folks who are like minded, who have some differences in their thinking, but bring together this beautiful thing that we believe in, which is love, grace, mercy, and humility. Um, so I would say that's the first kind of like foundation of creating brave space, is to be reminded that you're not alone. So, at the very least, if you feel isolated right now, if you feel alone right now, if you feel helpless right now, and you want a community, and this community speaks to your experience, this is a space for you. And it's a brave foundation in which can help prepare you for coming to Synod. Because those of you who have come to Synod before, or maybe you're thinking about it, but if you have come to Synod before, you know that when you get there, you're with your people and you're in this like hedge of protection. Our first guest, which is coming April 8th, Jess Cass, Reverend Jess Cass, likes to, she's the one who's taught me the frame hedge of protection. So I'm giving that quote to her. But this hedge of protection is knowing that you're with your people that hold you, you're with the people that see you, and you get renewal in that experience too. So in a way, joining this series is prepping you for that entry point to Synod where you're going to receive that renewal of being with your people. And at Synod itself, you, Charles, you mentioned it, there is our queer care space. There is a safe space, community space for all. And there is also this year going to be a community networking space, and an opportunity for you and your friends and the folks you're going to be with to sign up to have time in that community space to continue networking and building or renewing or being in community with your hedge of protection. So all of these things kind of weave together to a culmination of being at Synod and knowing that you have space in place and that you belong. I think the key component of our wider faith, of our Christian faith, um, of our partnership and our communion to other denominations is belonging. Our human core need is to belong. And we have that human core need, I believe, because God instilled it in us. So we're trying to create multiple ways to remind one another that we have that belonging within each other and that we can make space for that belonging together. This series has three parts, like I said, and so we'll kind of be journeying through three little movements together. So on April 8th, what we're going to do is we're going to open with my friend, my colleague, my mentor. I'm so blessed that she's doing this with us first, Reverend Jess Cass, and who we lovingly call Rabbi T, who will be with us from New York, virtually, of course, leading us in an intimate conversation, around women on faith, connection, holy rituals, and really just like how to show up in our body as women in this moment today. So really starting there, starting in the body, right? Starting in that brave space that we have belonging to our bodies and we have belonging to each other. And then in May 13th, our second series installment, we'll be looking at reinvigorating and empowering women in their call. And this doesn't just mean ordained ministry, right? We'll be looking at ordained ministry, we'll be looking at specialized ministry, but we'll also be looking at like everyday people, right? Like I deeply believe and know from my own reading of the scripture, like we're all called, we're all ordained by God to be in this world, to love one another well. So we all have gifts and offerings for ourselves and others. So in this moment that we're in, the one of the marginalized uses of legislation is against women and their bodies. So how do we reinvigorate and re-empower ourselves to take up that call and to be with it and to know that it's of us, for us, and with us? And then June, our last installment, which is June 10th, we'll be looking at like life across the life of faith. So a more kind of like intergenerational wisdom teaching around, birth to death. We're not going to be diving into the death territory, but really trying to give you that arc of what does it mean to show up to ourselves as women of faith throughout the entire arc of our life. And so that will kind of be our exit part of the series. And then again, like I said, at Synod, there will be plenty of information for you about where to find this. There will be opportunities for networking for this group that joined with us throughout those 3 months to meet in person. And hopefully the encouragement is that you'll form community through this series and maybe friends and maybe people you'll locate and find they're close to you. Or maybe you'll decide that you want to continue having this community practice and, virtually share emails, connect, and continue doing this kind of work together. It's really a time of asking what does the wider church of women in the wider church need, and first responding proactively with community and belonging, and having space at Synod to listen deeply to those needs continued. And move into offerings like the Antoinette Brown Society gathering will be the next year. And then hopefully more exciting things to come and announce and share from this wider swath of how do we gather as women of the UCC. So this is kind of it's an inaugural starting point of exploration that I am saying is all of us. We're doing this together. So I hope it's exciting, and I hope that folks will join and ultimately be nourished by it.
Yeah. Well, that you actually answered my last question, Rachel, which was about sort of the
Mhm.
looking ahead or looking after General Synod, and you had touched on the community aspect and the hope that people, when they gather at Synod, that they would feel called and led to connect. And exist and be with one another even beyond General Synod. Um, any last parting words or anything that you want to give to the people, in anticipation of the first installment of the series?
Yeah, you know, Jess, who is one of the teachers for the first installment, um, is a friend and is my pastor, actually, and my mentor. Um, Very Trinitarian of me to have three things in one. But I would say, um, don't miss this one. I want you to be here for the whole series, but um, there there's a lot of love and offering and wisdom that will come from these two folks. And if you're curious about this series, maybe you'll come to this first one and realize, I want to hang around, I want to stick around. But ultimately, this is a space of reprieve. It's a space of being seen. It's a space of knowing that you're not alone. And it's a space where we can come together with our differences and our shared realities and be the body of Christ. And I, you know, as a pastor who moves with the people, am eager and excited to try this new format of, workshops that where we can all talk together as opposed to a webinar setting. And what this also means, and I didn't say this earlier, is that these things will not be recorded live. So the only way to be involved with this is to be in the series. And we're not recording it live, obviously, because we're all in that space. And, one of the ways that we create brave space is to know that what's happening in that space belongs in that space and nowhere else, and is created sacred that way. So sign up, show up, come be with us. It's going to be really tender and loving and beautiful. And I already know that it'll be a blessing to who needs to have that in their life. But the other thing I'll say that is adjacent to the series, but you mentioned it, and I want to be able to say it as many times. I'm non-binary, I'm trans, and I'm traveling from the East Coast to Synod, and I'm nervous. I'm scared about that. That's a reality. And I am committed to being at Synod because I serve you all. I work for the local and wider church. I walk with you all.
Mhm.
And so my commitment is to be there. And one of the things that I am doing in order to assure, my safety in the uncertainty of this moment across the US is I'm traveling to meet up with colleagues to travel with them to Synod. So I would say, fear can be the death of like our love in action. And there are times where, keeping yourself safe is important. And so don't hear me say risk things, but don't let the current climate of the world deter you away from having the nourishment and the connectivity and the belonging to the body of Christ, to the life and bread of the word and our communion that we will have together and our time together out of the rhetoric that's circling. Get creative about how you make space and arrangements to get there, but don't let that be the reason to stop you. Let that be the reason to empower you. And I think it's important to be transparent about, what we're doing. And so that's why I'm sharing, that's where my thoughts are. But um, I, who knows, you might meet somebody in this community together that you're like, oh, what flight are you on? How are you going? And,
Mhm.
caravan over that way. So we take care of each other by being with each other. So ultimately, come be with us so that we can take care of each other.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Rachel, for this time together this morning to talk about this new exciting series.
Yeah.
We're really looking forward to all that this will bring and what this will mean, not only for those who attend this series, but for General Synod and for women in the
Yes.
wider church as a whole. And I want to just encourage those of you that might come across this story in this video. To please just look at the description of this video for the link to be able to register for the Into the Deep Women to Women series. And also just pay attention to ucc.org, as well as generalsynod.org, if I can make a shameless plug of just finding out about all things related to General Synod, including these opportunities to network with different women from across the denomination. Rachel, thank you so much for your time. And thank you all for watching. And we hope to see you again here real soon.
Yeah. Thanks.